Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Capital Carnage. I am Ken Carnage, and for my first several episodes, I want to talk about a historical document. A document that is historical, as old as our country is, but as prevalent today as it was the day it was penned with a feather quill. It is the most important document in this country. The Constitution of the United States of America. It's the most important document to every American, or it should be. Not because of what it gives us, but because of what it takes away from the government. And for the first 10 episodes of my show, I will be paying special attention to the Constitution, in particular, the Bill of Rights. So, no place to start except for at number 1, right? So, the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America decrees, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. There is a lot to unpack in this statement. First and foremost, it talks about Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. True to this day, as it should be. We have no official religion in this country. Now, there is always going to be one religion, say, will have more members in a country than another. You know, depending on where you go around the world, it's different religions that have the majority. Okay? When America was founded, the majority of the people here were Christians. Protestants, to be exact. So, most of our founding fathers had what you might call Christian values, which is part of the reason why they chose not to make a legal religion. There is no legal ramifications for following your own religion in this country because of the value that Christianity placed on free will and freedom. Okay? It goes on to say, or prohibiting the exercise of prohibiting the exercise thereof. So again, talking about religion in this country, the government is not supposed to be able to tell you what religion you can or cannot follow, except for in cases where your religion would be breaking the law, causing grievous bodily harm to someone else, more specifically. So, if your religion, I don't think there are any today that still do this, but just for argument's sake, if your religion says that on every new moon you get to sacrifice a virgin to Lunata, the moon goddess, Yeah, our legal system's going to have a problem with that, and that kind of action's not going to be protected under the freedom of religion. You're free to believe in Luneta, the moon goddess, but you are not. You're not free to sacrifice someone in her honor, and this is important because people choice is important. Freedom is important. There should never be a reason to infringe upon someone unless what they are doing is going to directly take away the rights of someone else. So, or abridging the freedom of speech. And this gets into a subject that's very, very, very touchy today. So, freedom of speech. Let me make this clear. Freedom of speech, the First Amendment, is designed to protect you from the government. It does not mean that you can say whatever you want to Billy Bob on the block, and when Billy Bob gets mad at you, you go, free speech, man. Nah, the First Amendment doesn't protect you from Billy Bob. Laws against assault can protect you against Billy Bob, as long as Billy Bob decides he doesn't want to spend the night in jail. If Billy Bob decides whooping your ass is worth a night in jail, you about to get your ass whooped. Okay, so it's freedom from prosecution by the government, but not necessarily freedom from a consequence. You say the wrong thing to the wrong person, they may respond in a way that you don't like. They may yell. They may assault you. These things are not mature. In the case of the assault, they're not legal either. But the reason that it's not legal has nothing to do with the First Amendment and has everything to do with whatever assault laws are on the books in that area. But it's something very, very important to remember, that the First Amendment, freedom of speech, is only designed to protect us from the government. And that's important. It's very important that it does. Because if we were to ever find ourselves in a situation like is going on in, China, where you're not allowed to criticize the government, you're not allowed to speak ill of the government. President Xi Jinping, I believe it's pronounced, the president of China. If a Chinese citizen were to walk through the streets of China saying that shouting that their president, I think it's Xi Jinping, their president is a fool, doesn't know how to legislate, is an idiot, is ugly and his mother dresses him funny. Any of these, that Chinese citizen is going to end up in jail if they don't get the shit kicked out of them first. Pardon my French. That is an example of where freedom of speech is most important. Because in this country, in America, we're allowed to criticize our elected officials. You're allowed to say that, President Trump is some stupid Cheeto if you want to. You're allowed to say that AOC has the mentality of a third grader on crack if you want to. You're allowed to criticize. You're allowed to have an opinion. You're allowed to express an opinion. but in other parts of the world, you're not. And so, one thing I would call for all Americans on all sides of the aisle to remember is that there's a reason freedom of speech is our First Amendment. Because it's important. So, the next piece of the First Amendment says, or of the press. Now, this is important as well. Because what it's designed to do is it's designed to stop the government from being able to control the press. Now, it would have been so much easier if there was some sort of law on the books that dictates that what the news tell us has to be true. Oh. But alas, slowly, we once had the assumption that people would just be morally good enough to not report false information. That's not really the case anymore. It hasn't been for a long time. It's just more apparent now than it ever was before. These days, you can watch CNN, get one story. Watch Fox, get a completely different story. Watch MSNBC, get a story that's 75% CNN and, 10% Fox and 15% opinion. You watch CBS and you can get, 95% CNN. You get where I'm going here. You're not getting... If the truth was being reported as the truth, there would not be such a discrepancy in what these news stations are saying. And that leaves the American public, in a position that, admittedly, it's not a good position to be in. It's not ideal. In a perfect world, we should be able to, trust that our news is giving us the proper information. But, you get back to DTA. Don't trust anybody. You can't trust them to give you the right information. You have to have a discerning eye, a discerning ear, and a logical mind. You need to be able to look at what they give you and say, well, that doesn't make sense. And here's why. Or that does make sense. And here's why. And alas, most Americans, they don't want to be that plugged into it. And I get it, because it can be frustrating to be that plugged into it. Believe me, I know. But I also know, and what you've got to know, and what you've got to understand, is the long-standing pillars of our political system. They are absolutely counting on you all staying unplugged, uninterested, and unfazed by what they do. I think unaware would be a better word than unfazed. They want you unplugged, uninterested, and unaware. Because if you're not paying attention to what they're doing, they can essentially do whatever they want, and have been for decades. Moving on from there, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble. And then this goes into the right to protest and whatnot. Now, the right to protest is a constitutional right. Personally, half the time when I look at a protest, my main thought is what is the point of this? other than to, basically make an example or make a display of yourselves. But it gets into some seedy territory. For instance, I respect everybody's right to protest on their own time, and that's the important thing. There is, yes, we're allowed to protest. We're allowed to voice whatever views we want to. That's fine. But when you work for a company, an organization, and you have a uniform, you're wearing their colors, okay? You don't get to do it while wearing their colors. If you have to wear... let's say you have to wear a uniform for work. Let's say you work for Brinks. You work for Brinks Armored Truck. You got to wear the uniform, the vest, the whole 9 yards. Okay. You want to go and protest. You can. Don't wear your work uniform. Wearing your work uniform makes your protest your employer's business because you're representing his business. So yes, you absolutely have the right to protest, but you don't necessarily have the right to do it while advertising somebody else's business and affecting their pocket. Because I promise you, it doesn't matter who you are, how much money you've got, if your protest starts affecting their pocket, they're gonna do what they can to affect yours. And because it's not the government, it's not protected under the First Amendment. Again, the First Amendment only protects you from the government. I'm explaining this because I don't want any misconceptions out there. It's important to know your rights. It's also important to know that your rights do not apply to everyday citizens and employers the same way that they apply to the government and government officials. And to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And this gets back to basically what you could refer to as your right to bitch. It's your right to sue the government if you feel like they've done you wrong. It's your right to, to try. It also ties into your right to protest, I suppose. You believe that something is wrong. You and a bunch of your friends or a bunch of like-minded people believe that something that is being done is wrong. You're allowed to go out in front of a building. You go out in front of a courthouse. You go out in front of a news studio, a corporation, a government building. I can't promise you how close you'll get to the government building, but as close as you can get, you'll get there. And you'll walk around with your signs, and you will try and make it known that you're not happy. And that's fine. I would say, though, that if you are spending all your time going from protest to protest to protest to protest, you might want to think about a job or a hobby that does not involve spiking your blood pressure just for your health's sake. Here's the thing. Being outraged has become trendy, which is sad. But being outraged has become trendy. If you're outraged about everything all the time, what are you doing with your life? You're wasting it. And in a country where literally hundreds of thousands of people die before they're ever born, you really should consider life a gift and don't waste it. Enjoy it. I'm not telling you not to protest. I'm not telling you not to stand up for what you believe in. Obviously, I'm not. But if you're part of this outrage culture, if you're part, and I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, if you're part of this outrage culture, then at the end of the day, the only person you're really hurting is yourself. So, in closing, I would reiterate, the First Amendment grants you freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of press, the right to assemble and protest. And damn, they crammed 5 into that First Amendment. The other thing you have to remember is this. The Bill of Rights, the amendments, these are not rights given to us by the government. These are the God-given rights. Or if you're not religious, if you prefer me say it a different way, these are the inalienable human rights every citizen of this country has. It's not that the government gives them to you. It's that the government's not allowed to take them away. The Bill of Rights is not there to limit people. It is there to limit government. So, be sure to join me next time where I will be going over the Second Amendment. Wow, that one's pretty high on the list too. Must be pretty important. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I am Ken Carnage. Si vis pacem, parabellum.